Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we are going to talk about the single kettlebell floor press. This video is part of a greater series of videos where we are teaching kettlebells in a logical order from absolute basics up to advanced technique. This video goes in the middle of a Turkish get-up series. There are fundamental things you need to know in kettlebells: the deadlift, the swing, the hand-to-hand swing, the clean, the hand change, the press, the squat, the step back lunge, and all of those things develop to get us to the point where we can start to work on our Turkish get-up. The Turkish get-up is getting up off of the ground with a kettlebell in one arm in lockout. Thus far, we have been working on the get down portion of it, a clean step back to putting our knee on the ground. Now we are going to flip it. We are going to go to our back, start picking up the bell and doing a single arm floor press. The Turkish get-up essentially starts to replace bench press for most people for at-home training. It is very different from a bench press. With bench press, you would use very heavy weights, but it would not be a complicated movement. With a Turkish get-up, we start with a floor press, and then it will turn into a half get-up. Then we will get all the way up. Then we will work on getting back down. We are going to start from a seated position down on the ground, and we are going to work on getting the kettlebell up without hurting our shoulder. Getting the kettlebell to our starting position is half of the learning technique, and we would like to be very good at it. We will start by rolling our body towards the kettlebell. The goal is to put our hand in front of our solar plexus. Take your other hand, grab on, and pull, keeping the kettlebell in front of our shoulder the entire time. Change legs. This makes more sense when we develop into the next steps of the Turkish get-up. Elbow flat on the ground, arm basically at 90 degrees so that the forearm is vertical. Other hand out at a 45-degree angle. You can either do head flat on the ground, but most people will start with the head up off of the ground so that they can get more core engagement when they are learning. Press to elbow lockout. The same way that we press the lockout overhead, we start with lockout here. Bring the elbow down to the ground, touch, press all the way up. Bring it down, touch, press all the way up, bring it down, touch, elbow rests on the ground, forearm remains vertical, press all the way up. The important part is that we are still holding our kettlebell like it's a kettlebell. We have quickly changed angles here so that you can see the angle that the kettlebell sits at. Everything that we do with the bell is the same as we do when we are in the standing position. The L of our hand is all the way into the corner of the kettlebell. The handle is down at a 45-degree angle. Our elbow is locked out. How you hold it matters. If you find yourself holding it with a parallel handle and your wrist is bent, you will have a hard time going up to heavier and heavier weights. If you end up with the bell in this position, adjust the bell, L of the hand to the L of the kettlebell, 45 degrees down, so that your fingers are pointed straight at the sky when you open your hand. If your fingers are pointed to the side, adjust the bell. Bring the elbow down till it touches the ground. The forearm is still vertical. What we are doing is avoiding resting the bell on our body, because that will mean that we will have to add a whole movement to lift the bell up. It works with a lightweight, it does not work with a heavyweight. Back to the original side, let's discuss setting the bell down. After you finish your final rep, elbow touches the ground. The other hand comes up and over, grabs onto the knuckles, and you're gonna roll your whole body to the side to keep the kettlebell in front of your chest. What we are trying to avoid doing by rolling our body to the side is externally rotating our elbow fast with a heavy weight. You're trying to avoid that external rotation because many people who have a history of working out in the gym are not great at that. If you have a history of heavy club swinging or mace swinging, that gets substantially less dangerous. Or if you have worked on your basics and worked on your halos, your alternating halos for several months, then externally rotating the shoulder under load gets less and less dangerous over time. But in the beginning, everything is about safety. We want the hand to stay in relation to our chest, so we are going to roll our body on the ground to keep it there. When we grab with our hands, knuckle comes to knuckle so that we can wrap our hand over the top. That way, when we set it down, we have the best possible grip and our hand stays in front of the center of our body. When changing hands in the beginning, we will roll over the kettlebell. This hides an extra bit of athletic training in here, which is a bit of ground engagement. After we finish the rep, we grab with our other hand, we roll to the center. We are going to roll over the bell to get to the other side. Line up your hand, grab with the other hand, pull it to center, and begin presses on the other side. Grab the weight to set it down, change legs, keep the kettlebell in the center, unthread your arm, get over the top any way you want in the beginning. We will talk about making this fancier over time. In the beginning, just get over the bell. Kettlebell at elbow height, get close to the bell, pull it up, and begin your presses on the other side. Always pick it up and set it down with good technique. This exercise tends to be a very safe way for people to work on chest development. It has different angles than what you will work on in the gym, but because you are on the ground, you cannot drop your elbow behind the line of your body. When people do bench in a gym and they lower the weight down and touch the bar to their chest, their elbow tracks behind the body. Because of the way that the bench is set up, many people will get movement by opening up the front of their shoulder joint. That is why 60% of the gym-going male population has an injury right here. Developing all the basic pieces of a Turkish get-up will help you over time heal those injuries and integrate your chest strength into core strength. When the elbow stops moving by touching the ground, the shoulder capsule cannot open up. So this becomes a very safe way for people to train with a low likelihood of injury. The key thing is picking the weight up and putting it down with correct technique. Many people get hurt when they set the weight down by dropping the weight to the side and giving up the tension in the muscles before they are done with the weight. Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we are going to work on our half kneeling clean and press. The best thing about kettlebells is that they are economical, they're cheap, they don't go bad, and they can be done literally anywhere you have enough space. This video builds on our previous clean and press videos. Learning to clean, get the weight up to our rack position with good technique is very, very important to your kettlebell overall development. Once we learn to do our clean standing, we add the press, then we run a program with clean and press for 2 to 3 years of progressive overload in order to make sure that people get the absolute most out of their kettlebell training. We can also take our clean and press and put it in our different bases of support. Standing is the first base of support, half kneeling, one knee on the ground, one leg forward, one leg back. The bottom of a lunge is the second position that we do our clean and press in. This specific version is a breakout exercise that we use when training for Turkish get-ups. We are helping people get good at the bottom of a lunge, learn to stack their spine, and work on the halfway point of a get-up with weight. If you are training in a weird environment, it really helps to put something under your knee for this exercise, because every time you do a clean, your knee will shift on the ground. I am simply using a sweater in a travel bag to place on the ground to put my knee down in this alleyway. Put something underneath your knee, one knee on the ground, 90 degrees with the lead leg, 90 degrees with the rear leg. Your knees should still be standing distance apart, approximately shoulder distance apart when you step back. That allows you to have plenty of space to do your clean. Your kettlebell should start with the handle 90 degrees from the line of your hips, equal with the instep of the lead leg. When you pick it up, your elbow starts straight. Grab the L of your hand to the corner of the kettlebell grip, the L of the handle. Push the weight back, come to our clean, add in the press. If you are still leaning forward in your clean, by adding the press, you will be forced to drive your hip forward, make your spine as vertical as possible. Drive your rib cage down in this position and squeeze that glute. You should feel a stretch in the front of the hip. Bring the weight all the way down, thumb at collarbone height. Push the hip back when you do the clean, thumb points back. Push back, snap hip forward, thumb at collarbone height. The grip is very important. If your grip is not in the correct position when you do the clean, 45 degrees down, then adjust the bell with the other hand. Open the shoulder, press straight up to the sky, lock out the tricep, bring the weight down in front of you, thumb at collarbone height. This is always a resting position. Hip goes back, thumb goes back. Drive the hip forward, feel a stretch in the front of the hip. When the weight is overhead, arm out to the side. That helps people square their shoulders to the top and put their hip directly over their knee and under their shoulder. Bring the weight down. Push back, clean, press. Bring it down, pause every time. To add breathing, exhale everywhere. To put the weight down, push the weight back, drift the kettlebell back out in front. Thumb is still pointed back. Kettlebell is equal with the instep of the lead leg. When you are learning kettlebells, we focus a lot on these lighter weights so people can work on their technique, and we exhale everywhere. When you exhale, your core will involuntarily contract, which will help you learn to stabilize your spine better. Exhale at the bottom, exhale on the catch, exhale on the press, exhale on the catch. 4 breaths for every 1 rep count. As the weight gets heavier and heavier, that may change. The bigger the jump between weights that you have, the more your breath will change. This breath, exhaling 4 times per rep, is specifically designed for lighter weights and to allow people to learn to endure better. Endurance is the unification of structure, where all your bones go, breathing, how much you're exhaling, and the movement itself. You are always working on all 3 of those points when you are training kettlebells. You could take this exercise and train it just like clean and press and make it reverse ladders, but because this is a Turkish get-up breakdown, we tend to put this into a time under tension protocol with lighter weights. If you have heavier weights, there's entirely different types of training that you would do with it, but always start with light weights so you can focus on the coaching cues and make sure your body ends up in the correct place and get stronger incrementally. Strength and movement development can take years, and that's fine. All high-level athletes practice the basics in small incremental jumps for years to get to the high level that they operate at. With kettlebell training, you can train anywhere, but be aware that your knee will grind into the ground. So you can find a bunch of different ways to pad your knee. Sometimes you can use a sweater in a bag like I'm using. You could use an ab mat if you're in a gym. If you're at home, you could use a couch cushion. Find a way to train to not get hurt. Start light, build heavy, focus on your coaching cues, and exhale every time. Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we are going to work on the kettlebell single arm floor press with roll. At this point in learning kettlebells, we bounce back and forth between the bottom of a Turkish get-up and the midpoint of a Turkish get-up. Teaching it this way helps people learn from the top and the bottom, and it helps them learn faster. Picking up and putting down the kettlebell is where many people get hurt when they are learning. Sit down on the ground, one leg straight, the same leg as the side of your body that the kettlebell is on. Lie down. We want the kettlebell to be at the height of our elbow if our arm is at a 90-degree angle. Roll towards the kettlebell. Reach out with one hand. The other hand wraps over, and both hands are now in the center of my chest, in front of my solar plexus. Hold with the other hand, pull, and roll. That keeps our arm in front of us so that we are less likely to hurt our shoulder when picking up and putting down the weight. Kettlebell grip, forearm vertical. Press, as we have done in previous video techniques. Now, drive your shoulder up off of the ground and stack your wrist, elbow, shoulder, and shoulder in one line. Eyes up on the bell the entire time. Roll back down, its own distinct phase. Then bend the elbow, bring it down. Elbow resting on the ground, press to lock out. Lockout is important for the Turkish get-up. Roll to the side. Wrist, elbow, shoulder, shoulder, generally in one line, but it won't be perfect because your eyes still have to be up on the bell. Shoulder down, then break at the elbow, bring your arm down. Press the lockout, roll to the side, come back down, bring the weight down. Change legs so that you can roll towards the bell. Grab with the other hand, roll to put it down. Always think about safety first. The heavier the weight gets, the more important the pick up and set down technique is. Now I'm going to demonstrate it with the other hand, so you will see me roll towards the camera instead of away from the camera. Grab with the other hand, pull, back flat on the ground. The goal here is not to let our lower back be lifted up because it makes it hard for us to roll. Drive your rib cage down. If you have to, eyes look at the belly button in order to push the lower back into the ground. Press to lockout. Once we are in lockout, then roll to the side, press into the ground with that same side leg to help you push your body into the turn. Back down. This leg is helping to decelerate our body. Elbow bend, touch the ground. Press the lockout. Push with the leg, drive with the shoulder, roll to the side. Eyes up on the bell. When people look down, sometimes they drop the weight right past their face. Eyes on the thing that can crush your skull. Come down, decelerate with the help of the leg, bring the weight down. Press the lockout, roll, come down, elbow down. Add exhales everywhere to help you stay in time. Grab with the other hand, roll towards the bell to set it down with good technique. The important part is that it is two distinct phases, press to lockout and roll. When people are new, people will roll down and try to bend the elbow at the same time. We want to get out of that habit. It does not work with a heavy weight. We have our lockout, we roll to the side. Do not bend your elbow before you have rolled back. It does weird things to your shoulder. Lockout, roll, come down. Only when your back is perfectly flat and your lower back is flat on the ground do you decelerate the weight to the ground. Do not gloss those two things together. It will make it very difficult for you to do Turkish get-ups in the long term. The most important thing is safety. In order to make everything safer, add an exhale in between moves to slow you down so that you don't end up putting your body in a position that it's not strong in. Hello, this is Mark Wildman of Wildman Athletica, and today we are going to talk about our half kneeling windmill. Today we are focusing on the top down, the middle portion of the Turkish get-up. We are going to start in our half kneeling position. We are going to introduce the windmill. We are starting in our half kneeling position, 90-degree angle in the lead leg, 90-degree angle in the rear leg. We would like knee, hip driven forward, shoulder all to be in one vertical line. How you pick up and put down the kettlebell is always important because that determines how safe we are. We always want to pick up and put down the kettlebell with good technique. Kettlebell starts equal with the instep of the lead leg. Arm is perfectly straight when we do a kettlebell clean to get the kettlebell to shoulder height. Thumb points down. Thumb joins into the corner of the kettlebell. Pointing finger, middle finger, thumb grip the kettlebell the hardest. Push the weight back, hip drives back, drive the hip forward, catch, weight at shoulder height, elbow close to the body, forearm vertical. If your elbow is out or your wrist is bent, pull your elbow in and adjust the bell to get the handle down at a 45-degree angle. That changes slightly on what type of bell you're using, but that holds pretty constant. We are going to add a press to get to the starting position. Press all the way to lockout and hold lockout the entire time. Let's think about our spare hand touching our bottom leg. Slide down, touch the ground. Hand comes out, put palm flat on the ground. Drive up without bending your elbow. Hip underneath us. Hand goes down. Do not look at the ground. It's always in the same spot. It's underneath your knee. Drive up. Elbow stays locked out. Touch down. drive up, touch down, drive up. In the beginning, many people might find it beneficial to put their hand down in front of them instead of straight to the side so that they can add a spiral on the way up. This is still a hip exercise. Hip goes into flexion, hand touches down, both triceps are locked out, eyes turn towards the weight. If people look down, they tend to drop the weight past their face onto the ground. Focus, eyes up on the bell, turn your shoulders towards the sky. Clean and press up, touch down, drive up, touch down, drive up, touch down, drive up. Only when you have completed all of your reps do you bend the elbow, come back to rack position, push the hips back, and set the weight down equal with the instep of the lead leg. The most important part about this is elbow lockout. If the elbow bends when you're in the top position, people tend to drop the weight. Not dropping the weight is very important. When people drop the weight, they get scared and then they don't want to continue to do the exercise. Get all of your bones in the correct position to start. Get your kettlebell in the correct grip, down at a 45-degree angle. Lock out the elbow. As you move, keep your eyes up. Think about inhaling when your hand touches the ground. Think about exhaling as you return to a vertical spine position. Inhale down, exhale up. Inhale down, exhale up. Of course, make sure that you're doing an equal number of reps on both sides. This is really a shoulder mobility exercise and a side sit-up slam together. This is the version that I teach first instead of the standing version because the range of movement is smaller and you're more stable, therefore people learn this version faster. The standing version of the windmill is taught after the Turkish get-up.